Good morning. I want to thank you for joining me for our Migrant Education Program, Title I Part C Program Evaluation Series. My name is Lauren McKinney, and I do serve here at the Region 10 Education Service Center. This particular series program was a little easier for me to prepare for, and I'll say that because we have an entire department here, our Migrant Education Department, that actually facilitates the vast majority of all services as pertains to migrant ed. So when we get to the end of our time here together this morning, if you have any more questions, I will show their contact information at the end, and I do recommend that we follow up with them directly. I'm going to cover quite a few things this morning, but if you have not already registered, and I know I gave this warning before, please make sure you do so. The registration link is there in the bottom corner, and this one also is found on our calendar of events. And then attendance, same thing. If you're looking for CPE credit and just proof later on that you did participate in this session, we will have that for you as well. Let's get started. Here is our agenda for today. The first is our program evaluation series overview. Then we'll go into statutory requirements, the migrant education requirements, program evaluation process, then the link between the CNA and then our CIP, look at migrant education categories, and then also we'll start to close with other program evaluation series sessions that are upcoming, and then lastly, some resources. So the program evaluation series, what is it? How many are there? And why are we in fact offering these? Well, here is the series description that we published on a flyer that went out across the listserv and also that's posted on our website. But in short, any program that's receiving federal funding has to actually evaluate the program. They want to make sure that the funding that is being utilized for programs, regardless of which one it is actually worthy of the financial investment, is actually worthy of the time to implement it. And also they want to make sure that it's actually worthy of increasing student achievement. Because as with all things that pertain with federal funding, it all comes back to student achievement. How did our students do? Did they make market increases as far as their overall achievement is concerned, just across the board? So I'm not going to read this to you here, but just know that that was the intent of offering this program evaluation series. We do have to evaluate every program that we use federal funding for. So why not set it up as a series to delve a little deeper into each of the federal funding sections? We are offering a total of 9 of these sessions in this series. And we're offering it because we wanted to be able to create a sort of on-demand approach to providing assistance. With everyone's schedules, there may be times that you have questions that we are not in the office, or there are times that you are wanting assistance or have a couple of questions in regards to program evaluations when it's a little difficult to get in contact, either because of our schedules or yours. So we wanted to have an opportunity to put some out there, record them, and make them available at any time. You'll see the flyer there on the right-hand side of the screen, and that delves more into the program evaluation series as far as the dates that they're being offered and the subjects. I'll go into it a little bit more at the very end, but just as an FYI, we are offering all 9 between May 17th, and then the last one concludes on June 1st. And also, as another side note, you'll notice as we go through here that the title programs that you see are based on NCLB. They're based on No Child Left Behind. So for example, the June 1st says Title VI Part B, Rural Education Initiative. Well, under the Every Student Succeeds Act, that's no longer there under Title VI. So you will see that some of this kind of moves around a little bit, but just know this program evaluation series is based on the NCLB mandates and standards, because we are still finishing out our term under No Child Left Behind. So with that being said, let's go directly into the statutory requirements. Do I have to engage in this? And we know that, yes, we do. We all have to engage in this process of providing a program evaluation. So the evaluation process in general, it's just basically having a look at what we set out to do, what we accomplished, and the degree to which we actually accomplished it. Evaluation must be planned from the very start, so that includes our baseline data. The baseline data helps, as you can imagine, to be able to provide a structure or guidelines to see, did we actually make the improvements that we said we wanted to make? Was this actually worthy of a financial investment and worthy of a time investment for the students as well? So with the evaluation data, we need as much as possible, and we do not, as a side note, because sometimes I get asked this quite a bit, does it have to be that quantitative hardcore data? Not always. If you're using, especially as pertains to migrant education program, if you're using survey data, if you're having forums face-to-face, opportunities for families who are participating in the migrant education program to share, this is how I feel this program has helped, this is where I feel that we could have done a little better, whatever the case may be, we can embed some qualitative data into this as well. At the very minimum, though, just in general, we want to make sure that we're collecting data from our fund sources, also our CNA, because that's what lets us know these are the opportunities for growth that we have. This is what we need to address. And then our campus improvement or district improvement plans as well. So going forward, if you're looking at this and trying to wrap your mind around the program evaluation process, and you're saying to yourself, I don't have as much data as I would prefer to have, that's totally fine. What we want to make sure we do is start planning for that upfront for next year. So statutory requirements for program evaluations are indicated in the provisions and insurances of the NCLB consolidated application. And the NCLB stat requirements are: the applicant will adopt and use proper methods of administering each such program, including the enforcement of any obligations imposed by law on agencies, institutions, organizations, and other recipients responsible for carrying out each program, and the correction of deficiencies in program operations that are identified through audits, monitoring, or evaluation. Here are the requirements specific to our Title I Part C. And we have the LEA will conduct an annual evaluation of programs assisted with Title I Part C funds, and will use the findings of this and other evaluations in modifying and improving the program. So data for this evaluation is collected through and available from NGS, the Public Education Information Management System, PIEMS, state assessment answer sheets, regional migrant databases, evaluation reports submitted annually by the district to the TEA, and then other resources. So this is what I was referencing when I said that this session was a little easier than some of the other sessions to prepare for, in that here at the Service Center, our migrant education department has a database. They hold on to all of this information. Very few of our districts actually have to engage in the program evaluation part of their migrant ed programs to the extent as, say, like our parent involvement program. Everyone has to do that. Everyone has to engage in that. But with migrant education funds and with the migrant education program, the vast majority of the districts that we have and LEAs that we have in our region default to Region 10 and allow us to be of service in that way. So if you have questions about any other data pieces that you're wanting to get information on, if you are compiling data yourself, please feel free to reach out to 10, because we have all of that information. I want to give you a little bit more information in regards to the statutory requirements. It says the LEA, or the shared service agreement, of which the majority of our districts do participate in our SSA, specifically for Title I Part C, our migrant ed program. We have to have an appropriate consultation with our migrant PAC in planning, reviewing, and improving the local migrant education program. So I like that they took the time to delve a little bit more into what appropriate consultation means, because that is a little ambiguous and we can interpret that a variety of ways. But according to statute, this includes, but is not limited to, both of the following. 1, providing copies of pertinent district and campus improvement plans. You cannot get away from the improvement plan or the comprehensive needs assessment, which we'll look at again as we go through this. You can also get copies of this pertinent information through state plans, federal laws, state laws, copies of reports that are used for audits, the monitoring visits that the agency may actually engage in. There's a few more samples here. I won't read all that to you, but either way it goes, we're looking at something that helps to describe the academic performance and the needs of our migrant students in comparison to other student populations. The second option that we have here is the empowerment training for PAC members at no cost to parents. So the LEA has to assure that in planning, implementation, and evaluation of the migrant education program, there has been and will be adequate provisions for addressing the unmet needs of preschool migratory children, as well as the identification and recruitment of these children. The identification and recruitment piece, we will delve into a little bit more as well, because that is a high priority and one of the major pieces that is involved with Title I Part C. Putting systems into place to be able to properly identify and recruit our students that are part of migrant families, our migratory families. So now I want to go a little bit into the law. So education of our migratory children requirements. What must I actually do? Because there's a lot that we can do, but what must I do? So before we go into that, I did want to give a little bit of okay, we're going from NCLB to ESSA. What is actually the same across the laws? I pulled this from the U.S. Department of Education and the TEA's website, and I wanted to make sure I showed this to you. We'll go into this a little bit more, but I do want to point out that our migrant education programs are available and of value to our students, our kiddos, from birth to age 21. If they are entitled to that free public education, which they are through grade 12 in the state, we have to provide opportunities for that education for our students. Children who moved as a migratory agricultural worker or a migratory fisher, or if they are with or they're joining a parent, guardian, or spouse who is a migratory agricultural worker or migratory fisher. Our migratory children are also eligible for this program, the Migrant Ed program, for 36 months from their most recent qualifying arrival date. So as you can imagine, and as some of you know, when you're looking at the arrival date, the qualifying arrival date, that can change quite a bit due to the nature of this population and their family, meaning the frequency in which they sometimes move or transfer. The program description, I'm not going to read all this to you. I just want to pull out major points from this. The first of which is this federal funding has to support high quality education programs. What we're trying to do with this program is to help our students who are migrant not be penalized because they are moving from one state to another, from one part of the region or in the state to another part of the region in the state. We're trying to ensure that with this program, their academics are not suffering. We're wanting to make sure that their overall academic achievement is still there, it's still strong, and we're providing opportunities for them to be able to maintain the academic excellence that they are entitled to and capable of. We also see here that says funds also ensure that migrant children not only are provided with the education services that they need, but it addresses the special and really unique needs that are specific to this population. It includes, but isn't limited to, of course, opportunities to meet the academic content as well as the academic achievement. Federal funds are also allocated to make sure that our students who are between the ages of birth to 21 residing within the state receive additional services. The purpose of the migrant education program kind of just spins off of what we just covered. It's to make sure that our students who are migrant are not held accountable because of the challenges with mobility, culture, language barriers, social isolation, and other difficulties that are unique to this migratory lifestyle. The purpose of this program is to make sure that our migrant students are still successful, that they are performing at the level that they can and that they're entitled to. And as they transition between pre-K to 12th grade and transition into post-secondary education or employment, whatever that route that they select, the path that they select is, that we are still providing the best services and assisting them with being able to do so. One of the goals of the migrant education program is to ensure that all of our migrant students reach challenging academic standards and that they're graduating high school with a high school diploma or a GED that helps to prepare them to be responsible citizens, can continue their own learning, be it a four-year institution, a traditional post-secondary institution. It could be a two-year program. It could be going straight into career. Whatever further learning they want to pursue, the goal of the program, of the migrant education program, is to help them achieve that. And then also here, productive employment. So I told you before we were going to go into migrant identification and recruitment. At the very end of this, will show you some guidance documents as well as a couple of manuals. But I just wanted to make sure, I felt as though I would be remiss to not bring this up, given the topic of the program evaluation series webinar today. But migrant identification and recruitment is required. It's not an option by any stretch of the imagination. It is required by federal law that our state, which in turn means us, our local education agencies as well, identify and recruit every school-age child of eligible migrant parents residing in the state into Title I Part C, the migrant education program. Local school districts, as well as education service centers, have to have recruiters that will identify and recruit migrant children and youth through an interview process. We have to make sure that we are conducting that identification and recruitment beyond the campus and actually throughout the community. So it's not just tied to, these are students that I have, I'm on this campus, I have students that were just enrolled today, they shared with me that they are a part of a migrant family. That's wonderful if that happens, and that's awesome information I can get up front. But in addition to that, identification and recruitment goes beyond that. I should be actively in the community, identifying, seeking out, finding, taking referrals. If someone says, hey, you know, I believe that this family is a migrant family, they may have services, or you may have services that you can help them out with, they may have needs. It's a full approach. It's not a sit back and wait and see what happens. Maybe someone will self-identify. The Texas Manual for the Identification and Recruitment of Migrant Children truly outlines, like step by step, the practices and processes specific to Texas and its MEP. So again, local education agencies, service centers, anyone receiving funding from this must follow the requirements established in that manual for identifying and recruiting eligible children. Because remember, the purpose of this program is to ensure that students who are part of migrant families are not penalized because of the nature of transitioning and moving frequently, that they're able to accomplish and achieve the same amount of goals, the same academic success, the same life goals that they have in place as their non-migrant counterparts. Lastly here, the manual does help recruiters make proper eligibility decisions and complete the documentation needed and put some really strong quality control measures in place. The U.S. Office of Migrant Education, the OME, pretty much houses anything and everything that pertains to this. It lets us know what it is we're supposed to be doing. It gives us the guidance and breaks down the law. They have identified through law what is considered areas of concern for this population. And the first of which is called educational continuity, which we've already referenced several times throughout, making sure that regardless if I'm moving within state, out of state, transitioning, whatever the case may be, that there's continuity in the type of education that I'm receiving, the curriculum, hopefully the quality also is there as well, which leads us into, of course, our state equity plans, but just ensuring that across the board, there's continuity in education and what our children are receiving. The second area of concern is instructional time. Will they be losing that as they transition from one campus to another, from one area of the country or one area of the state to another? And the obvious answer to that would be yes. It just depends on how long they're out of school or formalized education before they transition back in. So that is, as you can imagine, an area of concern. School engagement, feeling tied to the school and the community at large, engaging in the process of this is my school, this is our culture, this is our climate here, this is what we as XYZ Elementary do. English language development, another area of concern according to the OME, and that makes sense as well. If I am a second language learner, being able to fully develop the language skills, even if I'm not a second language learner, if I'm not in school as often as I would like to be, or would be preferable, you know, when learning a language development, language acquisition, I need that as much as possible. Educational support in the home is another area of concern. Unfortunately, we have some statistics that do show that it's not the level of education at home for parents who are migrant workers. It's not necessarily as high as what it is for our families at home who are not migrant workers. Next thing we have here is health. That is a true area of concern, and it's from, you know, getting physical checkups at the doctor. It's my vision checks. It's my latest vaccinations. Those are areas of concern, because if physically, health-wise, even down, you know, to my diet, I'm not eating properly, or I'm not getting everything, the nutrients that I need. I need glasses, but I'm scared to say something because I don't want to, you know, embarrass myself in class. All of those affect our ability to perform successfully in school. And then the last one here, which kind of slides right into that, is access to services. That is another area of concern identified by the OME, because unfortunately, due to a lot of barriers and factors, our families who are migratory, they don't always have access to the services that they need and that they're entitled to. So through OME, these are the areas that they identify of concern when we are trying to educate and take care of the needs of all of our students, again, because they are not, nor should they be, penalized because of the movement of their families. So these are what the OME refers to as these 7 areas of concern. So I have a couple of more pieces that comes from the law. A little bit of it does repeat itself because the statute is the statute, and we've kind of hit on some of this already. But again, just to reiterate, and if you want to see the full law, I will show you where how you can access this later. This goes into the purpose of it, of this, the Migrant Education Program, making sure that high quality and comprehensive programs are provided and available for our migratory children to help reduce what they refer to as the educational disruptions and other problems that result from repeated moves. The second piece, ensuring that migratory children who move among the states are not penalized in any manner by disparities among the states in curriculum, graduation requirements, and state academic content and student achievement. The third one, making sure that our migratory children are provided with the educational services, including supportive services, because that is unique to this population, that address their special needs in a manner that's coordinated and efficient. Number 4, ensuring that our migratory children receive full and appropriate opportunities to meet the academic standards and the academic achievement. 5, designing programs to help migratory children overcome the educational disruption, the cultural and language barriers, social isolation that can come from this, and then various health-related problems and other factors. And then number 6, ensuring that our migratory children benefit from state and local system reforms. States that apply for funding must adhere to these specific mandates. And spoiler alert, all of our states, all of our states receive funding for this from the USDE. So they have to comply with this. Here's a little bit more information about the state allocations. Basically repeating some of the stuff we said before, just making sure that our students who are migratory children are receiving all of the benefits that they are entitled to, and also making sure that we are using basically coordination of funds between the programs so that these students are getting the biggest bang for their buck. This goes into a little bit more state applications, because states do have to complete an application to receive the funding for this particular federal funding source, the Title I Part C. And this goes into a little bit more information as well. One of the things that I want to point out, number 3 here, it talks again about the educational continuity and the timely transfer of pertinent school records, including information on health. So again, it's that just reiterating that concept, that thought of our students should not be held accountable, nor should they be penalized because of the migratory nature of their families. So in order to help smooth this transition and make the transition as easy as possible for these families, there should not be a delay in transferring pertinent records that can help the child be successful. Have a couple of more things here, and then I will transition out of the law piece of this. But as we said before, you cannot get away from the CNA. That comprehensive needs assessment is everywhere. And I'll talk a little bit more about it later in our time together this morning. But I wanted to put this here just as a reminder that we all have to do this. We have to make sure that we are truly identifying and addressing the needs that our students have, and that we're not just randomly saying, well, I think this may be an area, I think this may be a need. In the migrant education program, there are very special and specific needs to these children that have to be addressed in the CNA. And it includes making sure that we're setting goals, we're setting outcomes, we're providing a full range of services for these students, and that we're also providing opportunities under early childhood programs and language instruction for these students to be as successful as possible. And here's the last slide. I just wanted to, as an FYI, I got this from the TEA's website. Our Texas migrant education program enrolls 45,000 students out of an enrollment total of about 5 million in our state. So our migrant program is second largest in the country and is administered at the local level through our LEAs and, of course, service centers. Our Texas migrant students and families migrate annually to 48 other states, making Texas home to the largest interstate migrant student population in our country. We welcome as a state workers here to perform temporary and seasonal work. The majority of it is centered around agriculture and fishing industries, which is why that was mentioned before when I gave you the definition of what's considered migrant student. In Texas, we have 56% of our migrant families live in the Rio Grande Valley. And in that region of the state, approximately 30,000 migrant students are housed there, and it's larger than the number of migrant students in over 40 other state migrant education programs in that one area. We also have large concentrations of our migrant families that reside in the San Felipe, Del Rio, Eagle Pass, El Paso, Hereford, and Houston areas. So just to kind of bring it all back and make it not just about the law, we serve a lot of students here in the state of Texas that are eligible and enrolled in the migrant education program. So again, this is part of the reason why we want to make sure that we are successfully evaluating the programs that we're offering, and is the migrant ed program that we're offering in our LEA, in our region, one that truly benefits the students and one that helps them to be successful in life. So before we go into the program evaluation process, do you have any questions for me? Okay, not seeing any. I am going to continue. The program evaluation process, this section is going to cover the process itself. We're going to have a look at the tool, examples, and then how to actually evaluate. So here is the first piece. The program evaluation process is broken down into these 5 areas. And if you actually have a copy of the program evaluation booklet, it's found on our Title I website, region10.org/Title I. It is about halfway down the page on the left-hand side. The booklet itself is there, and I will show you how to access it, but this is page 6 of that. The first thing it says we need to do is make sure that we are listing the needs, followed by identifying strategies, identifying funds, reviewing the data, and then lastly, evaluating the impact of the program. So here's the first piece. List the needs identified within the comprehensive needs assessment, because again, we cannot get away from that CNA. I have a screenshot of the tool here, and this one is specific to student achievement, but whatever one you select, because there are 8 areas within the CNA, it all looks the same. We have the possible data sources, we have the data sources reviewed, and with the data, I do want to point out that it is very seldom we don't want it to all be the same kind of data. We don't want it to all come from the same source. So if the variety of data sources that we have to pull from, the better, because it gives more of a global and universal understanding of, even with all of these data points, these data sources, these factors, this is telling us this is what we need to do in order to meet the needs of this population. So here's the back side of it. The form says findings, analysis. It also goes into the strengths and needs that we find in this. And then we also, of course, want to end with making sure that we are summarizing the needs in general. And with the needs, it's very important that we do not just offer a 1 or 2. We highly suggest that you list as many needs as you can, or that you find, prioritizing them, of course, but listing multiple needs, because on the off chance that you get the opportunity to tackle a new need, let's say you got unexpected funding, or you had a community partner who wants to step in and now offer this, or the district is now able to give some supplemental funds or additional funds to use on the campus based on your needs. If you don't have them identified in the CNA, protocol would say that you need to go back and redo your CNA to find what your current needs are and how this funding source may be used to meet a need. So we do highly encourage that you put as many of the needs that you have in order of priority, of course, as possible in your summary of needs, because it prevents, and even though this is a living document, it's a breathing document, it does prevent you from having to go back and fully engage in the whole CNA process again and again and again every time you receive the possibility of new funding. Here is step 2. Using a district or campus improvement plan, you are to identify the strategies or initiatives that address these program needs and were connected to this federal program. So this is just a screenshot of a campus improvement plan. It could be whatever process you have in your LEA. Everyone's looks a little different, but this is just a template. And what we're doing at this juncture, we've already looked at, okay, we've conducted the CNA, we've listed the needs. Now from here, these are the strategies that we said we are going to employ to meet the needs for that specific program. So with our migrant education program, we've done our CNA. We found through data that there are specific, let's say, social isolation needs, some type of, which we know is common in our migrant education program to address. But let's say we want to come up with a strategy or an action that specifically targets social isolation for our students. That is just a strategy that would go here. We're identifying the person responsible, the resources. And as an FYI, resources, they're not just referring to the name of the curriculum or the name of the program. They want to see the funding piece here. They want you to put the amount of money that you anticipate spending for that strategy, and also whether it's a state funded source, a federal funded source, a local funded source, they want you to jot that down there. If it applies or shows or pays for that specific strategy, best practice, you want it there listed under resources. Doesn't have to be down to the penny, but just in general, this is about how much we think it'll cost for this strategy, and this is the fund source that we're identifying to pay for it. Next piece, timelines, evidence of implementation, evidence of impact, formative and summative, just checks, and then under Title I, if you are a school-wide campus, you were adhering to the school-wide, the 10 school-wide components, which were required under the No Child Left Behind legislation for Title I school-wide. So, second part of the evaluation process, I'm just looking at the strategies that I identified at the beginning of this process, because the program evaluation takes us from a look back in time for when we first did the CNA, we first identified the needs, we first identified strategies, all the way through, we've conducted it, so now how do we know whether or not it worked? Step 3 in this is identifying the amount of funds used to implement the strategy or initiative, if applicable. And the funds, I put a screenshot of just the action strategy portion of the CIP or your DIP, District Improvement Plan, because you can pull this from here. Something else that's kind of, I'm sure you already do this, but just as a reminder, when you're going through your program evaluation process, make sure you have your budget reports there, because that's what lists exactly how much you spent on what, and it becomes a little obvious right away. This is what we focused our funding sources and funding opportunities towards, and this is financially the impact of it. So what I did here, this is from another part of the state. This is not an LEA within our region, so it's from a different region, but I pulled this from the TEA's website. This is just a snapshot of this particular LEA's budget report. It breaks it down by, instruction, curriculum, staff development, the same budget reports that we've all seen. But I like this because, again, it's just that reminder of, if I'm getting ready to do a program evaluation of any kind, I want to pull those budget reports because it helps me to see, this is what I've spent this money on. This is ties into the program, and when I'm evaluating it, I need to know how much I spent on it. And then from there, was that investment of funds a worthwhile investment? Was there academic improvement, academic achievement based on my using the funds for that program? So this is just a snapshot, not ours, not anyone within our region, but a budget report. Step 4 in the program evaluation process, making sure that we are reviewing data, making sure that it's identified to measure the fidelity of implementation and also impact of the strategy or the initiative on student outcomes. Because as we've said already, it all comes back to student achievement. This is just another screenshot from that CNA. So again, using data from when we first conducted the CNA, these were the data sources that were reviewed. Was any of it beneficial to our students? What I have here, because in addition to like your CNA, your CIP or DIP, student achievement is one of the things that we for sure, and especially vital to this particular program, our Title I Part C, our migrant education program. We want to see, was there actual student achievement through numbers? So what I have here is a snapshot of a workshop I used to, I wrote and facilitated here at the Service Center, I think about 3 years ago at this point. And this is a made-up school, as you can tell. I have the Cheshire Cat, Chicken Little, Simba King, Tiana Princess, just all Disney movies. But students, and it breaks down how academically they achieved on the 7th grade science curriculum assessment number 3. So I just inserted this in here just as a reminder that student achievement data is important, especially with this particular program evaluation. We want to be able to show that this program, our migrant education program, was of service and of benefit to the students. And one of the easiest ways to see whether or not that occurred is through academics. So looking at our student achievement reports, again, your budget reports, additional data sources. I do want to mention this because we get asked about this as well. Sign-in sheets can be an additional data source, especially with this population. Is the outreach that we are tasked with doing with the identification and recruitment of migratory children, is that being successful? Are we conducting surveys? If so, what are the results? If we have meeting minutes, trend data, your data does not have to, nor should it come just from your CNA, your CIP, and then your DIP and student achievement hardcore data, just as a side note. And the last step in the program evaluation process, evaluate the impact and make recommendations for continuation, modification of the strategy or the initiative. So this is it's just a heat map. It's not specific to anything. I screenshot this in here just to be able to show when we are evaluating the impact of a program, we want to be as concrete as possible. This is not an opportunity to be subjective. Well, we identified 2 more kids this year than what we did last year, even though that is important, that goes towards identification and recruitment pieces. We want to see whether or not we had an impact with this population, if it were worthy of continuing to actually fund this program. And if so, and in this case, migrant education is not an option, but even so, are there components that we embedded this year that are strategies that we may not want to do next year? It just wasn't beneficial. So evaluating the impact in order to be able to make the recommendations that are involved with the program evaluation itself. Can we objectively make recommendations as to the success and academic achievement of the program? So now I want to show you the program evaluation tool. There are several different tools you can use, especially when referencing migrant education program. If you just Google program evaluation tool, migrant ed, you'll get a slew of hits that come back to show you this is, what different agencies, even within the USDE, there's a program evaluation toolkit that looks slightly different from what we use here in Texas. What's most important is that it's being evaluated, but for the sake of what we're turning into the agency, there is a uniform tool that across the board we just typically use. So let me show you this. The program evaluation tool, which I will take you to, is an Excel sheet. It's just a spreadsheet, but the format is the same across all of the programs. This one is specific to Title I Part C, our Migrant Ed program. The entitlement, that's how much money. That's how much we're spending on this. Completion date, that is when we actually completed the entire evaluation. It's not when we started the programs. It's not when we started going through individual pieces of data. It's when this entire evaluation was concluded. You'll see here it also lists the program intent. So the purpose of the migrant education program is to design and support programs that help migrant students overcome the challenges of mobility, cultural and language barriers, social isolation, and other difficulties associated with the migratory lifestyle. These efforts are aimed at helping migrant students succeed in school and successfully transition to post-secondary education or employment. The Program Evaluation Committee, you'll see there are 2 stars sitting there because these are just 2 reminders. You have to fill in the names, and you want to make sure that those who are participating cover the gamut as far as we have parents, we have, depending on the level, possibly students, we have our local community members, business members. Within that comprehensive needs assessment, there are members that you can choose from, but also making sure that you identify the position. So that is this person a parent? Is this person a local business member? Is this a student? Is this whatever position they have? It's very important that you list that there as well, because when they're going back and having a look at your evaluation and they're looking through your programs, they want to be able to see that you had diverse voices that hit all of the areas of need, all of the different perspectives that could be provided to ensure that this program was successful. This is the second page of the evaluation tool. You see here we have a column for the date. And the date, the reason why there's several columns, because it's the date that you specifically talked about that strategy. So the date that you identified that particular need from your CNA and the strategy that was associated with it. So in this case, let's say the social isolation was an identified need from my CNA, and we looked at it on May 20th. And the strategy to address that need, let's say we developed or added I don't want to say buddy program because that doesn't cover it, but for the sake of this example, let's say a peer mentoring program or a peer support program. The fourth column there is how much I spent. So the expenditure, because again, the entitlement, your global entitlement, going back on page 1, they want to know specifically how much you spent per strategy, the impact that it had, and then based on the evaluation, would you recommend continuing this particular strategy? Would you recommend having this strategy again next year, or getting rid of it altogether, or maybe revamping it and adding a few more pieces that now that we've had this particular strategy this year, we've learned, okay, hey, we need to add this part or maybe get rid of this part. This wasn't very successful, but your recommendations based on the 5 steps that you've conducted in the program evaluation process, that's where you want to put that. And then again, the data sources, we want to be able to show that this wasn't, these recommendations, the impact, all of this wasn't arbitrarily decided on. This was based on data. So before we go into the migrant education categories, because at this point we've covered the law, we just covered the program evaluation steps, the process to it, the 5 steps, and then we just looked at the program evaluation tool. Is there anything else from any of the morning pieces that we've covered so far, these front-loaded pieces, that you have a question about before we go into the education categories? Okay, colleagues, I am not seeing any, so let's keep going. Our migrant education categories, I wanted to point these out. This can be found directly on our Region 10 site, and I'll take you to the site as well. They list 4 different categories there and the role that Region 10 plays in this, because as noted in legislation, we as LEAs or ESCs are responsible for engaging in this process for this federal funding source, the Migrant Education Program. So one of the categories is non-project district with no identified migrant students. As we said before, even though the state of Texas is like second as far as the amount of migrant students that we serve as a state, not every region, not every area in our state has students that are identified as migrants. So in this category, the school district has not identified any migrant students, and it does not receive the Migrant Education Program funding, which is, we have several districts that this falls under. Region 10 will assist with the identification and recruitment of students, supply recruitment posters, and conduct awareness training, recruit and interview possible migrant families, and provide telephone and on-site technical assistance. Because it is required that as an ESC, we are providing services. So if you are a district and you do not have identified migrant students, just know that we here can also assist with that IDR, the identification and recruitment. Here's the second category, non-project district with identified migrant students. So this district actually has identified migrant students, but does not receive any funding. Region 10 will assist with identification and recruitment of students. We're also going to supply the recruitment posters, conduct awareness training, recruit and interview possible migrant families. We will also make the home visits by the recruiter to complete that certificate of eligibility. We'll also help coordinate health and educational services and provide technical and on-site technical assistance. We will also enter migrant student information into the National Migrant Student Database and provide school district reports for information and documentation. When I started off this session saying that we have a lot of information here, this is part of the reason why, because it is a requirement. It is a service that we here at the Region 10 offer. The third type is what's identified as a project district. This means that the school district has identified migrant students and has completed the SAS migrant application and received state funding to set up a migrant education program to meet the individual needs of migrant children. We here at Region 10 provide migrant-funded districts with staff development, on-site technical assistance in the 7 areas of concern that we looked at earlier from the OME. For small projects, we'll also enter migrant student information into that national migrant student database for you and provide school district reports with information and documentation, which you can use, of course, in your program evaluation piece. And here's the fourth piece, our shared services arrangement. We have several districts that participate in our SSA specific to Title I, Part C. Non-project school districts with identified migrant students are eligible to enter into the agreement with Region 10 and receive funding to implement the Migrant Ed program. We will submit the standard application system, the SAS, for migrant education. We also supply evaluation data, so we will conduct that program evaluation for you, and we'll help you, guide you through it, let me say that, and help maintain auditable files, provide training and technical assistance to migrant staff, and serve as the liaison to the agency. So these are the four types that we have listed here. Now I want to transition into that CNA and CIP. It is required, and I want to show you how it all ties together. If you have not seen the Comprehensive Needs Assessment booklet, it can be found on our Region 10 page, and that's just region10.org/Title I. The Comprehensive Needs Assessment booklet is about a little above halfway down the page. It's actually right above the Program Evaluation Series booklet, and that's there if you want to download it and look at it and go through it. I'll show you how to access that. We get asked, do I have to do this? Do I have to engage in that CNA? And the answer is yeah, we all have to. And it's not just a federal mandate. Of course, under the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, passed back in 1965 by President Johnson, and under the No Child Left Behind, it is specifically mentioned in Title I Part A and other NCLB programs as well, including the Title I Part C. The Texas Education Code also requires this. And as you saw, because I read this to you earlier, it is also a mandate under the Migratory Education Program that you conduct a CNA. And it makes sense to me. You know, it's the purpose of this is to examine multiple sources of data to identify and prioritize the needs and the direction for the school. That needs assessment guides the development of a comprehensive school-wide plan, and it helps and suggests benchmarks for evaluation, and it's closely linked to program implementation and then also the evaluation of those programs. If you're wanting to participate in a full comprehensive needs assessment training and campus and district improvement plan training, I would suggest coming to those. We offer them here at the Region 10 several times throughout the year, but just as a quick snapshot, a reminder, with our CNA members, you see the 8 here on the left side of the screen. There's community members, their parents, their principals, the pupil services personnel. It also includes school staff, students, especially at the secondary level, and others as applicable, teachers, and then technical assistance providers. Now with the CNA, there are 8 areas, and which means there are 8 committees. So we have the demographics, student achievement, school culture and climate, staff quality, recruitment and retention, curriculum instruction and assessment, family and community involvement, school context and organization, and technology. So with that CNA, I've shown you screenshots of this before, but after it's conducted, this is just what it looks like. At the end, this is the tool, this is the sheet that we have to turn in to show that we have engaged in this process, and it helps to kind of guide as well. It has probing questions associated with the CNA as well. If you kind of get stuck, like I'm not quite sure what to ask to make sure that we are truly engaging in this, or I'm asking questions and everyone's just looking at me, it does provide some probing questions to help with this process. So just as a quick reminder, that CNA is central to everything that we do, especially referencing programs that we're wanting to put in place for the overall benefit and achievement of our students. That CNA guides our improvement plans, be it the campus or district. It guides what programs we select and how we spend funding for any of the titles, 1, 2, 3, 4 we have listed here, as well as even your state allotments. This is a requirement. That CNA helps us to determine what actual true areas of need we have. And then our campus improvement plan is based on that CNA because that's the action. That improvement plan says, okay, thank you, CNA, for properly identifying and objectively identifying the needs that we have on our campus, the needs that we have specific to our migrant education program. This plan now says this is what we're going to do to tackle it, to address it. And with our campus improvement or district improvement plans, it is important to remember that that plan drives your money. As what we looked at before in the program evaluation process, that step 4 when it was looking at your expenditures, this is part of the reason why that CIP is a data source that should be involved with reviewing your program evaluation. Because if the plan is telling us, let's back it up one step. If the CNA is saying, these are the needs, this is what we have to address. That CIP is saying, okay, this is the action or strategy we're going to do to address it. It also lists, this is how much money we anticipate needing or spending to address the needs identified in that CNA. So one other way of tying it together is this idea. I wanted to break it down to make sure that once again, I'm kind of reiterating and tying all the pieces here. That needs assessment determines why the gaps are there based on data, and it also helps us to determine why these are here by conducting a root cause analysis. So the CNA is the why. Our actual improvement plans, be it the campus or district, is the action. It's the plan. It's what we are doing to address the needs that were identified in that CNA. And to wrap it up, our program evaluation, that lets us know if we truly selected based on that CNA, this is what they told us our needs are. The plan says, okay, this is what we're going to do to meet these needs. The program evaluation just says, hey, did we actually put in place the right strategies to meet those needs? Going into the beginning of our closing, do you have any questions for me at this point? All right, I was trying to give appropriate wait time and I did not see any questions that came across. So here we are with the other program evaluation series sessions. As I mentioned before, started on May 17th and we will be going all the way through June 1st. There were 3 this week, the 17th, 18th, and the 19th. Next week on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the 22nd, 23rd, 24th, we will be covering Title I Part D, 2, and then Title II Part A, and then Title III Part A. The following week, the 30th, the 31st, and the 1st, we'll be addressing Title III Part A, Immigrant, Title IV Part A, Safe and Drug-Free Schools, and then lastly, Title VI Part B, which is the Rural Education Initiative. Again, these are the title programs under No Child Left Behind, as we are still in that, and we will be, as we transition into ESSA, this last remaining part of the school year. So I wanted to show you a couple of more things really quickly, where you can actually grab some of the resources. So on our website, region10.org/Title I, you'll see some of these resources here. By clicking on the Title I Part A section, and I'll take you to the site in a moment, this is exactly what it looks like. Across the top, you'll see some other information, but about halfway down the page, you will find the program evaluation booklet itself, as well as the tool. So this is, again, the booklet. Let me take you to the Title I site first, and then I'll take you to the migrant education resources that we have on our Region 10 page. So give me one moment to change the screen so that you can see what I see. Okay, so what I see here and what I have for you here is our Title I page. If I go to Title I Part A, and as a side note, this NCLB application compliance, that will be gone as of July 1, since we will be in ESSA at that time. Scrolling down the page here, this is guidance and fiscal issues, information in regards to school-wide, the comprehensive needs assessment, the campus improvement plan. And these are the probing questions that I mentioned to you guys earlier. If you kind of get stuck and you're like, okay, I need to ask some questions, I have some questions to help direct where we're going as far as the level of thinking that we're engaging in, please feel free to use them. Click on it really quick and I'll show you what it looks like. This is the booklet itself. I'm trying not to scroll so fast that you get a headache, but the probing question starts on page 7. Some of them have 12 questions. Some of the others have, like 10 questions. So feel free to just use the ones that you think are needed to foster a good conversation around this process, or you can use all of them. It's at your discretion. Under evaluation, the first thing you see is the flyer for the program evaluation series that you're participating in. So that's FYI there. Here's the program evaluation booklet that you have seen several times this morning, but this is the entire booklet here if you want to have another look at it. And then this is the program evaluation tool, which I reminded you earlier is an Excel document. So the first thing I want to do is enable editing so that I can type into it. But the very first is just the introduction. Then across the bottom, you'll see the different programs. So entitlement, I can type in whatever number I want to type in. All right. Completion date, again, that is the date that the program evaluation was completed. It wasn't the day that we started. It was the day that the entire evaluation was done. This I've already shown you. This is just the program evaluation committee, and then this is the second page listing the data source. Okay. All the rest of them are down here at the bottom, including, state comp ed and then local options. So I just wanted to show you that this is here, and I'm not going to save it because I don't need it, but I wanted to show you where you can locate this on our web page. So the next thing I want to do is actually take you to our Migrant Ed page as well. So an easy way to look this up, if you don't already have it bookmarked, I go to Programs, type in Migrant, and then automatically it pops up Migrant Education, and this takes me directly to their page. So here is the overview. Here are the service offerings that are available for districts, regional cluster, web-based. Here are forms and other information. I mean, it even includes surveys in English and Spanish, student performance logs for each of the levels, priority for service intervention plans, guides to scholarships, guides for newcomers in North Texas, and the recruitment poster that we kept referencing. This is here as well. And it gives, please contact who exactly is included. Have you moved? I mean, this gives just a nice succinct, if these apply to you, call us and we will help. Here are the migrant education categories that we already looked at, still here on the web page as well. And then some important links, and then also related pages. So one of the things I want to point out from here, again, here on the right side are the list of the contacts that are associated with the migrant education program here at Region 10 and know this program inside and out. So if you have any additional questions, I would highly recommend reaching out to them. Myra Sprayback is a program coordinator at this time. We also have several consultants listed, including Dr. Cynthia Jard. We have they're all here. I'm not going to read them all to you, but we do have a couple of migrant recruiters who are able to go out and do that identification and recruitment that's required under the law. Annalie and Zomatia are both here to do that. So I just wanted to show you how you can access the Migrant Education webpage, and just to let you know what additional resources are here as well. I went over this with you earlier as well, but the OME, here are the areas of concern that they have here. Here's a direct line to our Migrant Education Program office, and then our email address too, if you choose not to email someone directly over here. Okay. So now the next thing I want to do is take us back to the PowerPoint. So let me share my screen, but back to the other screen, and then we will keep on going. So you should see my other desktop. All right, let's keep going, guys. I just showed you this on the web page, but you can access it through our Title I page, or you can just type in Migrant Education like I did in the programs box. This, I told you earlier when we first started off that I had a couple of additional resources that I wanted to make sure that you saw. This is the Title I Part C Migrant Education Program Guidance. This was revised back in 2010 by the USDE, and it is what is still on our TEA website. This document provides guidance related to the Title I Part C program in the areas of program implementation, also service priority, how you decide who gets priority and who gets service first versus second or third. And then in addition, it also gives you guidance about the IDR, that identification and recruitment and student data collection. This is another resource I wanted to make sure I showed you. This is specific to Texas. The Texas Manual for IDR, the identification and recruitment of migrant children. This outlines your IDR practices and processes of the Texas MEP, local education agencies, as well as service centers receiving migrant education program funds must follow the requirements that are inside of this IDR manual for identifying and recruiting eligible students, because we are receiving this funding. So there are guidelines and requirements and steps as to this is how you will do this. The reference manual also helps recruiters, if you have a brand new recruiter or you're starting this process, complete necessary documentation and have some quality control measures in place. Here are a few more resources as well. The USDE has a separate site that's specific to the Migrant Education Program. This is their link for it, and I'll take you to it as well. But this is just a checklist for the State Migrant Evaluation Program. Let me take you to this website. Let me share my other screen one more time. So what you see here, this is a product of the USDE, and you'll see them there at the bottom, the OME, Office of Migrant Education. That way, you know this is a reputable source. It's not just something that someone threw together. They have a program evaluation toolkit as well. In addition, they have some report exemplars. So if you're wanting to look at a few things, just some other examples, and for sure, I recommend and highly recommend that you contact Region 10. But if you are wanting to look at a few more things, the USDE does have this available. Okay. So let me take you back to my other screen. I promise that's the last time I'm going to switch screens on you. So the very next thing I have here, as far as resources, give me 1 second to flip back. That is it. What I have going now here for us is an opportunity for questions and feedback. You guys have been pretty quiet this morning, but do you have any questions whatsoever for me as we close up our time here this morning? Okay. Seeing none, I want to show you our contact information here in Special Revenue Services. Amber Lizane is our Assistant Director. We have Tony Garrett, who is a Program Coordinator for the Title I Capacity Building Initiative, which is a statewide initiative. It's a grant, and she's housed here at Region 10. We also have Becky Book, who is my SSA consultant, and she also guides and leads our State Allotments Cooperative. If you have any questions about the State Allotments Cooperative and what that entails, please feel free to reach out to Becky. She's the lead on that. And then we also have Laura Griffin, who is our consultant here that is specifically providing guidance with private nonprofit. Up there in the corner, we have our Special Revenue Services booklet. This goes into a little bit more detail about some of the programs that we offer exclusively on our team, which does include the SSAs and a few other things. Next thing I want to show you, again, I showed you this already on the Region 10 Migrant Ed page, but as a reminder, these are the ladies and gentlemen that live in this migrant education world full time. Myra Scurryback, again, is the program coordinator for that team, and we have several other consultants here and migrant recruiters who can, and secretaries, Esther's awesome, who can help guide you if you have any questions specific to this program or need additional resources. So we are coming to a close with our time together. As a reminder, if you did not register in our calendar of events, please just take a couple of minutes to do so. The link is down here on the left-hand side of the screen, and that's gg.gg/PES 2017, and that's Program Evaluation Series 2017. And then on the right there, that's the attendance. If you were looking to just have a documentation or record that you participated today or wanted CPE credit, please just takes 2 minutes, put in your name and your email address, and that is gg.gg/PESTIPC, and that's Program Evaluation Series Title I Part C. Thank you very much for your time, and should you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us. And if there's anything else that we can provide to be of service, anyone here at the Region 10 ESE is glad to do so. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.